To get to a real-world example, Ambassador Jeffrey, you raised the question. So ISIL has taken Mosul, and who's going to dig them out of there? And this committee raised the issue before they got to Mosul, that we should have used air power while they were on the open desert to decimate that force, but that wasn't done at that time. So as of this morning, the Peshmerga forces had surrounded ISIS in Mosul on 3 sides. They're working to cut ISIS's ability to maneuver in the area. The greatest problem right now is the area south of Mosul, where Iraqi government forces and where the Sunni tribes are struggling to gain control of Saladin province. So when we look at the authorization just sent down to the committee, we're the Committee of Jurisdiction. So from the White House, they sent to Congress an authorization that would provide the flexibility to conduct ground combat operations in limited circumstances. And we go through some of the list, the use of special operations forces to take military action against ISIL leadership, and for intelligence collection and sharing, and missions to enable kinetic strikes, in other words, on the ground in order to call in airstrikes, and I guess there's about 3,000 special forces involved in that right now, or the provision of operational planning and other forms of advice and assistance of partner forces. I want to get to this question of assistance for our partner forces, because I am concerned about the situation that the Kurds face. We've had numerous meetings with them in which they've called repeatedly for anti-tank weapons that they could use, for artillery, for long-range mortar, armor, and that has not been done. And so as they surround Mosul, this gets to the question of what kind of leadership on the ground would be given, what kind of weaponry would be given, and what kinds of airstrikes will be, called in by our spotters on the ground. And maybe we can open with that. Ambassador, would you like to give us your thoughts on some of this?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. It's, to some degree, 2 separate questions. Arming the Kurds is an important issue, and there are 2 elements to it. One is what they need, and secondly, the political ramifications in the longer term, because there will be an Iraq and there will be a lot of problems in the Middle East after we defeat ISIS. And one of the problems is keeping Iraq together. So the administration's position, and it makes sense, it was a position we had when I was there, is to give these weapons through the Iraqi government, at least with a pro forma check, to the Kurds. We just have to try a lot harder to ensure that weapons go to the Kurds. It's easier for what I call defensive weapons. These are MRAP and Humvee armored vehicles that are basically for counterinsurgency. These would be anti-mine equipment, night vision goggles, armor, and all of that thing. The question is long-range artillery, as you mentioned, and armor, because that can not only be used in an urban situation against ISIS, it can also be used in a conflict with Baghdad. That's a tricky question. For the moment, I would focus on giving them better equipment to do what they're doing now, to ensure that they have the ammunition, that they have the armor to move around the battlefield. I'm not sure that giving them artillery and tanks is such a good idea, assuming they can hold the ground now, and they have been, including in a quite difficult attack in Kirkuk last week. In terms of the Kurds, the Peshmerga taking Mosul, there are various opinions on that. Part of Mosul was always considered Kurdish in the sense that there was a Kurdish element to the population in East Mosul, and they may be willing to fight in or near that. I'm not so sure they would be willing to take heavy casualties, and they would take heavy casualties, to fight to take over Sunni area.
Look, they're taking heavy casualties now. They're taking it against artillery when they don't have artillery to match. Only 25 of the 250 MRAPs that we sent through Baghdad got through. So I'm just pointing out that the weaponry is not getting through to the Kurds, and I think on both sides of the aisle here, the fighting is going to be done by Kurdish, by Jordanian, by Sunni tribes, by, Arab troops and Kurdish troops on the ground. And if we are not giving them the assistance they need, this allows ISIS not to be rolled back. We need to see them decisively rolled back. But let me go to Dr. Brennan just for a minute in terms of some of your thoughts on this, because I know that you've written about Peshmerga and coalition ground forces, the necessity to help them on the ground. Would you like to elaborate?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My view is that in order to assist these organizations, whether they be the Peshmerga or coalition forces that we bring on the ground, we have got to put U.S. forces with them. That is a perfect mission that we have, the United States Army Special Forces. I would be putting A-teams down at the battalion level to help them plan, get intelligence, to help them organize, and to allow them to bring in the type of air support that's necessary at the precision level. The problem you're going to have as you go into cities is there will be a great reluctance to use air support as you're in there because of the potential for collateral damage. Having our troops on the ground gives a sense of confidence that you could then bring those weapons where they're needed. And I think without putting our boots on the ground to do that would be extremely difficult to win this battle.
Well, you've got about 3,000 special forces now, U.S. personnel on the ground in theater, and they are calling in airstrikes right now. You're saying as you get into these cities, they need to be forward deployed in order to make certain that the ISIL targets are the targets that are hit.
Exactly, and they need to be engaged with all the coalition military, so we have an integrated air campaign and an enhanced air campaign, something much greater than we have right now.
My time's expired. I'll go to Mr. Engel, the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Committee.